Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into this really fascinating idea that how you get around, your daily commute, that walk to the store, doesn't just change your route, it fundamentally changes your entire perception of reality.
So, let's start with a little thought experiment. I want you to just take a second and picture the map of your city that exists only in your head. What does it look like? Is it a perfect grid? A bunch of lines connecting different points? Or maybe it's just a web of familiar streets you know by heart. Go on, get that image in your mind.
Because the whole reason I'm asking is that the source we're exploring today argues that your personal mode of transport is what actually draws that mental map. I mean, whether you walk, drive, or take the train, it dramatically changes the shape of that map, and in doing so, it shapes the very culture that you live in.
All right, so let's start with the most ancient and, the most fundamental way we move, on our own 2 feet.
When we walk, our world is built from the ground up, and I mean that literally. We're not just moving from point A to point B. You're soaking up this constant, rich stream of sensory information. You notice the texture of the pavement, that subtle incline of a street, the corner where you always bump into a neighbor. It's like experiencing a place in high definition.
Now, this creates a very specific kind of mental map. It's not that top-down, bird's-eye view you'd get from Google Maps, right? Instead, it's what's called a sequential map, and it's built from your actual routes and lived experiences. You just know the corner store is a 5-minute walk past that big oak tree. It's a map based on a story, on a sequence, not just some abstract coordinates.
And here's the kicker. This ground-level map isn't just about navigation. It builds real social capital. I mean, all those chance encounters and casual hellos on the sidewalk, that fosters trust. That shared sense of place makes a community more resilient in a crisis, it helps deter crime, and it creates the foundation for things we love, like street festivals. It's basically the glue that holds a neighborhood together.
Okay, so now let's scale up from our own 2 feet. What happens to our mental map when we start moving along these structured pathways, like railways and roads? Well, the world starts to look very, very different. Now, what's really interesting here is the contrast. When you travel by train, your world gets redefined by stations and the lines that connect them. It's all about the nodes. The space between the stations, it almost ceases to exist in your mental map. But car travel, on the other hand, turns the landscape into an abstract map space, a kind of puzzle to be navigated as efficiently as you can, where all the scenery just blurs into the background.
And think about it, train stations are way more than just transport points. They're these intentionally created artificial hubs. Railway companies and city planners design these spaces, carefully placing shops, housing, and public squares to create a very specific and often corporate identity. They're top-down cultural centers, not ones that grow organically from the ground up.
And with cars, the rise of GPS has brought on another massive shift. We're moving away from actively exploring and learning a route, building that mental map, to just passively following instructions from a device. The source suggests this could actually be dulling our sense of direction, our geographical knowledge, and even our sensitivity to the unique character of the places we're just speeding through.
So zooming out even further, let's look at a totally different kind of hub, one that's not defined by land, but by the sea. Port cities. They create a unique cultural landscape all their own.
See, unlike the planned, often uniform culture you find along a railway line, port cities have always been these incredible melting pots. They're defined by mixing. The source calls this a Creole culture, a totally hybrid identity born from centuries of different people, languages, and goods flowing in and out with the tides.
And you can literally see the layers of this hybrid culture in the city itself. You've got old warehouses right next to modern condos, streets that mark out where foreign settlements used to be, and a dazzling variety of food and places of worship, all side by side. The city's architecture is like a physical record of its global connections.
The very essence of a port city is flow. People and ideas are constantly arriving and departing, and this creates an environment where openness and fluidity aren't just some nice ideals. They are the fundamental operating system of the place. Multiculturalism isn't just a policy. It's a daily, lived reality.
All right, so this finally brings us to today. How does the internet, the ultimate tool for dissolving physical distance, fit into all of this?
Look, while our virtual communities are incredibly powerful for connecting us and spreading information across the globe, the source argues that they're fundamentally missing something. There's a sensory depth, a spontaneous texture to physical culture that a digital environment, for all its strengths, just really struggles to replicate. This comparison really gets to the heart of the matter.
What we gain in the digital world, this unprecedented reach and connection, we risk losing in the physical one. The internet just can't replicate the immediate trust of a face-to-face community, or that shared history that's rooted in a local landscape, or even just those subtle bonds that are forged by simply sharing a physical space. The source gives this a really powerful name. In Japanese, it's called living culture. And it's that irreplaceable value that comes from people physically walking, talking, and just existing together in a shared environment.
In this living culture, it's not just some nice-to-have thing. It's the bedrock that makes a community resilient. It supports our well-being, and it preserves the unique identity of a place against all these homogenizing forces of globalization. It is, in essence, the soul of a city.
So the goal isn't to reject our digital lives and go back in time. Not at all. The real challenge is to find a balance. It's about reevaluating and consciously strengthening our physical communities, maybe even using our digital tools, not to replace them, but to complement them.
Which of course brings this whole thing back to our own lives. As we navigate this increasingly digital and mobile world, it's really worth asking yourself, what am I doing right outside my own front door to contribute to the living culture of my community? How am I building my map?